Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. Today I'm going to use a lot of charts and pictures as a review for some of the instruments that we've been talking about. But before I do that, I have brought over some instruments just to give you a sampling of the many instruments that we've been discussing, like one recorder, one sasuto, one penny whistle, and all of that, just to review with you the types of instruments that we've been talking about. So let me begin with the recorder, and of course you're very, very familiar with this. And this is about 12.5 inches long. It's beautiful. It plays very, very well. And so you're very familiar with it, but I want to start off with that. Here's another recorder. I don't use it much to play with, but it does play pretty well. But what I like about it is that it defines, because of the blue colored bands, it defines very clearly where the head joint is right here, where the body is right here, and where the foot joint is. And I can pull it apart easily to show you the various parts and put it back together. It is one of my favorite instruments. But there are a lot of other woodwinds and wind instruments that I want you to see. This, for example, is the flutophone. Many schools use these instruments when they teach kids about music. They don't all use recorders, although recorders are a favorite, but there are other instruments that they use too. And as you know, it has a tone hole in the back, right here, a place to put your right thumb, right here, and it plays really quite well. I've done solos on flutophones. It really is a very nice instrument. It doesn't have 2 octaves, it only has 1, but it pitches very well and it has good tone quality. So there's the flutophone. Here is the song flute. It comes to a point. It has a tone hole in the back, although you may not be able to see it because it's so dark, and all of the tone holes in the front. And it plays quite well. It's pretty much in the key of C, and if I finger it the way I do the recorder, the pitch is a little off. But it's easy to play, and a lot of schools use them, and they're really quite nice. And I've done some work and solo work on this, so this is the song flute. Then you have the tonette, which looks very much like it. They look a lot alike. But the tonette has a bell, as you can see, and it doesn't play quite as well as the song flute, but they're very, very similar. If I take the tonette, you're going to notice quite a difference in the way that it plays. I'm fingering it just exactly like I did the tonette, the song flute, but the quality of the sound is quite a bit different. Nonetheless, they're used by school systems. One of the better instruments is the sasuto. You don't see them very often. I love mine. I have several. They come in different sizes. They're all black. They look alike, but the different sizes according to what key that they're in. I like very much the way that they play. Whoops, get my hands figured out here. So I've used these a lot. So these are the sasutos, and very much like them are the penny whistles that are metal. Well, that's metal too, but they come in silver, they come in gold with different colored tops. I mean, I have blue, red, and green mouthpieces for them, and I'll just play a few notes. They play very, very complicated music. I've done a lot of Irish music and so forth on these. They're actually very excellent instruments, and so are the sassutos. If I hold them up together, you know, they're about the same. One's black, one's silver, but they finger about the same way, and they really do sound well, and they can play some very complicated music, so I like both of them. Now, I brought over 2 of the melody flutes. These are just straight flutes. And they're like a recorder. They've got the same kind of mouthpiece. They have the labium and all of that. They have the window and the lip and how you blow them in. They're about the same. But I call them melody flutes because they're not made particularly like a recorder in the sense that you don't have the head joint and the body and the foot joint. They're like one unit, and they don't have any tone holes in the back like the recorders do, but they play pretty well. They do come in different keys. And you can play quite a bit with them. This is the Pro Piper, and I like it because it plays in the key of E flat, and it does a pretty good job. You have to adjust yourself a little bit when you play these different instruments because there are a little bit of differences between them, but basically they play the same on the same principles, and basically they sound pretty much alike, and they do play well, but not all of them play well. This is one that's peach color. I'm going to just see how it does. A little problem going from one octave to another. So you have to be careful. This one isn't quite as good as the other one does, but it does play notes, and you can teach certain things from it. Now, I also brought over one of the melodicas. I had another melodica here the other day, and I forgot to bring this one. What I really love about the melodicas is the fact that they look and act somewhat like a piano in the sense that you have a kind of keyboard that you can relate to that's like a piano keyboard. You have 3 keys and 2 keys, black keys, and then these little notes down here would be the same thing. I mean, they're just white buttons, but they are equivalent to the white keys of a piano. And this one, you just hold it. You can use both hands to play. It's very, very nice, so I use that a lot. I did bring this over for a reason. This little one here. This little guy here is a fife. You just blow across it. It has a little tone hole here, and you just blow across that tone hole. But it's designed to look like a flute, and a lot of times I'll talk about the flute, and I use this to kind of exemplify it because it looks a little bit like a flute. If you look at the top part, there's a little bit of an area that's built up. A flute is built up, and there's like an area around it. This has it a little bit, not to the extent that the flute and the piccolo have it, but a little bit. So I use this sometimes to demonstrate what a flute can do because it looks a little. Now looks a little like a flute. I'm trying to see if the light will glance off from it enough so you can see how it's built up. Maybe not. Because I can catch it from here, you might not be able to catch it. Let me hold it like this. I don't know, Rick, if we can catch that or not. Okay, all right. So these are the instruments that are normally used. I have tons more. I'm going to start off now by using charts to show you the various instruments because I want to go into a lot of the ones that I don't have here. So I'm just going to take this page by page by page, and then probably next time we'll go into the fingering charts and how to finger, but we'll also use charts for that. So this is a picture I actually do photocopy my instruments sometimes, or I find pictures. And this is the sassoon. This would be the penny whistle. This is the recorder. This is the tonette. This is the song flute. This is the flutophone. And this is another melody flute right here. So these are the kinds of instruments that schools use, and it's the kind of instruments that I like to teach on. The recorder, I just want to get this off here. This is just my sketch of the recorder. You can see in the back of it that it does have the tone hole. I'll hold this in the back of it. This is the head joint, labium, body, and foot joint. This whole thing would be the bore and the windway, and in the back of it, this would be the block you can see on the mouthpiece, on the head joint, and also the tone hole for the thumb in the back, which you use for octaves. I don't want to get into it deeply because we've done that. I'm just showing you in picture form what these instruments are. This, of course, is just a regular recorder, and I should pull that down a little bit so you can, whoop, thank you. This is one of mine. I took it over to a photocopy place and actually photocopied it. I'm the one, this is my hand holding it. It's one of the green ones I have. Now, I want to show you here a little bit about the piano. Here's a regular keyboard over here, but I'm going to pay more attention to this, so we don't really need to switch, Rick. Sorry about that. This is a keyboard, and I want to show you what the instruments can do. This would be like middle C. It looks like low C, like it's the lowest note, but the piano's a lot bigger. So this is the middle C, and the regular instruments like tonettes and song flutes and flutophones can get this first octave, which is right here. The second octave from here to here, you have your 2-octave instruments like the recorders, the penny whistles, the sassutos. Then the 3 octaves right here, a regular flute will do this. But that's as high as a regular flute can go. And then the piano does this octave. None of the woodwinds can get up that high. So C, 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 C. It's like 4 octaves at C, starting from the C and ending at the C. And if I use that octaves, 1-octave instruments go from here to here. 2-octave instruments go from here to here. The 3-octave instrument is going to be the flute itself, which I didn't bring with me, but I do play it a lot. And that would go up to here, and the piano goes up to the rest of it. So I think it's important to know that. Now, what I did here was try to make a full-size keyboard. It's not completely full-size, but you have the bass clef as well as the treble clef. This is the treble clef. And if we switch over to that, which maybe yeah, good. Okay, now we've got both of them. This is going to be all the bass clef. Then the middle C is going to be right here. Now, woodwinds will consider that to be the low C because that's as low as they can get. The saxophone can get a little bit lower, maybe a step and a half, and the clarinet can get a little bit lower by a few notes. But if you can think of this as a full-size keyboard, I know it's not, this would be the middle C. Then you've got the flutophone, ocarinas, melody flutes, tonettes, fifes. These are 1-octave instruments from that middle C to here. The 2-octave instruments will be the recorders, penny whistles, sassutos, ocarinas, melodicas, melody flutes, and fifes. They go from here to here. Then the flute, the traditional flute, goes 1 octave higher. Now there is another octave, and I didn't have a chance to put it in. There's just no room for it, but the piano would do that. So this gives you a chance to see. Now if I look at the scale, if I look at this scale, here is the middle C, and you know there's one ledger line. The middle C is halfway between the bass clef, which I put down here, and the treble clef, which is up here. It's halfway between them, and it has one little ledger line right between it. This is the first octave, and the first one octave instruments play from here to here. Two octave instruments play from here to here, and then the flute goes up to here. Those are 5 ledger lines on that C above high C. Now, I can use this as a low C, and I call this like a mid-range C, and this will be the high C. That's as high as any of the instruments that we play here would be able to go. The flute can take it one more octave, so this is the high C, and I call this the C above high C. And there is one more octave beyond that only the pianos can play, but they don't write it out. There would be so many ledger lines you wouldn't be able to read it. So what they do is they use a sign 8VA. That means play this octave an octave higher. It would be ridiculous. I mean, there are 5 ledger lines here. If you can read a note with 10 ledger lines, it would be way too difficult to do. So those are the ranges for the instruments. This is a sopranino. This is my sopranino. It's the smallest recorder, and I shrunk it up a little bit. It's a little bit bigger than that, but it's not much bigger than that. So the sopranino is the smallest recorder that you can use professionally to play with. Yeah, that's good. So this is my sopranino right here, and you notice it's like one. You can't pull out you can't pull out the foot joint or anything like that. It's just like a one-shot deal. These 2 recorders are Israeli recorders. I've had them both in. They're Israeli recorders made in Israel, and they're made by Gill. And so I have both of them, and I just put them together to photocopy them. They are plastic. This one's plastic on the top with wood on the bottom. This is wood all the way through. They play like any other recorder. And I want to show you the bottom of it where they have these 2 little holes. On many recorders, you have 2 little holes on the last note, and that's important because it helps you to play sharps and flats. But even if your recorders do not have it, and the older models a lot of times don't, you can still play all those notes. It just makes it a little easier. So these are Israeli recorders. This is a translucent instrument. You can see through it. I'm going to try to take the glare off if I press it just right. And I just want to show that to you. And I like instruments sometimes that you can see through because it makes a difference. You can understand better how they're made. This is the same translucent clear instrument, only you see the back side of it. You can see how the block is right here. It may be hard to see, but at any rate, that's a translucent clear. I have 2 or 3 of those, by the way, and I use them for different purposes. Now, on the back of the recorders is a little hole. It's a thumb hole. It's right here. This is actually one of my altos, and I didn't want to even try to get the whole thing. They're fairly large. I didn't want to try to get the whole thing, but I wanted to get the thumb hole in the back. And it's just like the thumb hole in the front, but there's only one. And what you do with these, you slide your thumb down if you want to pull an octave. In a lot of ways, that's the way. A lot of times you can get octaves that way. It doesn't work with every note, but it works with many of them. Now, the reason I brought this picture in, I'm here and I'm holding a tenor. I did that. I included it so you could see the size of the tenor. The tenor's quite large. But this is actually a Mozart concert that I was involved with, and I was playing a tenor, and I just brought it in so you can see the relative size of the tenor. They are pretty large, but they're beautiful, beautiful instruments. They actually have a voice. When you play one, it sounds like there's a tenor singing. They really are gorgeous. So I decided to bring it in so you would see the size of it. This is my sketch. This is my sketch of a folded bass without the keys. Now these are about 30 inches long. I mean, they're really quite large. And it makes them a little shorter because you have this piece which is a neck piece, what's called a neck piece, where it folds over. Now, if I show you this next one, this is the same thing with the keys on it. It's a folded bass. It's about 30, as I said, 30 inches long. There are a couple of keys here, and there's a key here, and there's a key here. You would not be able to stretch your fingers to be able to get all of the notes, and so what you have to do is just use the keys. It makes it a lot easier. Actually, it makes it a lot easier than some of the larger instruments because you've got the keys there. So that is the folded bass. Now, penny whistle. It's a smaller one than what I brought in today, made out of brass. You can see it looks kind of yellowish with a red top to it. So that's the penny whistle. This is the flutophone. I was surprised to get it in so clearly, but this is the flutophone. Notice that the keys and the tone holes are not the same size. That's to accommodate the different size of your fingers. And it also has a little double hole in the bottom like some of the recorders do. I really do like these simple instruments, and I really do like the flutophone. It's very easy to play. I took a drawing, excuse me, I made a drawing of the flutophone showing you where the fingers are. So, this would be B-A-G-F-E-D-C, exactly the same as the recorder. And the good part, the funny part of it, is that the saxophone plays it the same way. The same fingering patterns. The flutophone, the recorders, and the saxophone for the key of C scale, it's all the same kinds of fingerings. And here you have the place where you put your thumb. I put the tone hole, the thumb hole in the back up here, kind of tried to twist it around. The mouthpiece, you wouldn't see the block, but this is the mouthpiece. And flutophones, as you know, come in two colors. They're white with red, which is what I brought with me, or they're black with white trim, but they play exactly the same. I have both, of course, but this is the most attractive one because of the color, but they really play well. Only one octave, but they play well. This would be a conical. This actually is something like a penny whistle. It's a Clark's flute. It's conical, and because it comes to the point, and it's metal. Look, it's like a penny whistle. If it didn't come to a point, it would be a cylindrical, but it's a conical. Here's another picture of it, just larger. The labium is right here, and you can see it narrows down to the point. The tone holes, the mouthpiece right here. They're all about the same in many ways. Now I did a sketch, or took some photocopies, and I put the sassuto and the penny whistle together because they're very, very similar in the way that they play. And I did the same also for the tonette and the song flute. They're very similar in the way that they play. So I put them together, and we got a sketch of both of them together. And this is my, I don't have it here, I rarely bring it in, but this is my Gemeinhardt piccolo. It actually is mine. And piccolos are very small. They're about the third the size of a flute, but you can see that the mouthpiece is built up a little. It still has that hole like a fife has in it, but it's built up around it more than what I brought in for the little fife. But at any rate, they are like that. And I'm wondering, I think probably, you can see the sketch here, that it's built up a little bit. I wonder if I have another picture in here so you can really see it. This is what This is what I brought in this morning, that little one. I said it kind of mimics the way that the flute looks, so that I use it. And when I'm talking about the flute some, this is the area where it's built up. Now, what I'm going to do, since I'm running out of time, I'm going to close it here, and we're going to continue with this next time, this kind of review through pictures. So I will close it here. Please join me next time.